light beams. Welcome back to the Brittany Renée Experience. I have a wonderful guest on today. We have Levine with us, and I'm going to shoot it right over to you to introduce who you are and what your magical soul does here on the planet.
Oh, thank you, Brittany. I'm so excited to be here with you. The minute we met, I was like, oh, this energy, this woman, she's incredible, this
Oh, I love
powerful.
you.
So thank you. Who am I? Well, it's funny. I used to answer that question with like so many titles because I think I felt like I had to label myself. And I feel like it's important to start that way because it's like, I'm Allie. That's who I am. I wear many, titles. I'm a multidimensional being, as I'm sure many here who listen and watch your show. But I'm a certified breathwork coach, angel intuitive, intuitive frequency stylist. I used to be a celebrity wardrobe stylist in Hollywood for 15 plus years. And I'm a mama of three and a wife. And honestly, I'm just here to activate you into your God-given gifts, to your soul calling, to your soul expansion. And that's what I like live and breathe for now, is helping you be your authentic self.
Those of you who know me know this is just the vibe for always, all day and always. So there's so many things that we can talk on. Yeah, Allie and I found each other through TikTok because
Of
this is
course.
how we find tribe. And it's really beautiful because I think that there is this magnetism happening on the planet right now of not just feminines anymore, which is also a whole other side topic that I'm excited about, but that we're finding those similarly coded beings, right? So you were a stylist, I was a makeup artist, we both worked in Hollywood. Like there's so much here. And also like so much to be said about those of us who are light workers going into these dark, shadowy spaces and seeing the truth and bringing the light and then stepping out of it and knowing so many more depths than I think we realize right off the bat, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the breath work piece, like I am the embodiment person, right? I'm like, let's talk about getting in our bodies. Let's talk about getting out of our minds into our body. And we do that with breath. So I would love for you to kind of share what has your journey with breath work been? Because I think this is still on the rise. As much as I think people like us are like, duh, yeah, we do this. There's still so many people who don't, or who are even in the mindful consciousness journey and still are avoiding the breath work piece, which I get because I was like that
Well,
too.
so was I.
So I'm like, I want to hear your story on that.
Yeah, well, maybe I should start there when you say like it's like this resistance, right? Because there's such a resistance in general, and I love that about youth embodiment. It's like I don't want to get into the body. I could speak to it all day, but like when it comes to actually dropping into the body, I don't want to do it. I want to stay in my mind because I could be in control, so I think, and I could just keep going, right? So I think, and
Yeah.
honestly, that was like my journey. It was like I went through. For those that don't know, I had my daughter almost 6 years ago now. She just turned 6, yeah, like a few weeks ago. So a little over 6 years ago. That was kind of the cracking open of my journey. I went through heavy postpartum depression and anxiety, which I know I shared with you privately, Brittany. And, I had a traumatic birth after 42 hours, which unearthed kind of just everything that I hadn't dealt with in my life, from like my grandmother's passing in 2013, who was like my soulmate on this earth, to like not dealing with the people pleasing I've been doing in the industry, to just so many different pieces, right? The layers, like you said, and the darkness of everything I wasn't seeing that just all came at once to light. And it was like, ooh, you're being cracked open. And so meditation was the beginning of my journey when it came to all this. So it was very much in the mind. And it was funny. I was actually told about breath work, but I very much was like, no, I don't really get the whole like you breathe and then like everything goes away. It's like I was like, nope, I'm not signing up for that. And so I was like, I'll just stay in my mind. So it was like gratitude list, meditation, which by the way was amazing. And I did NLP, and I even got certified in NLP, and I did cognitive therapy and all these different things because I wanted to understand like why was I so twisted in my mind, which I obviously realized later I wasn't twisted at all. I was dealing with what you said was the shadows that were coming to light that I had to transmute and go through. But at that time, it was, what's wrong with Allie? What do I need to fix? And how do I do this? Which is very much in the mind, right? And
Right.
so I did that, and I found the light in the tunnel, and I started feeling like a new version of me around like a year after having my daughter. And I was feeling good, and I was like, okay, I don't really know where I'm going with my career because I kind of taken a step back from the styling because I just felt so dark and broken in that space. And I was like, I just need to focus on me and my health. And then I was going to think about going back in. And then 2020 hit, like the rest of us in the world. I was pregnant with my second daughter, and the mindset work was no longer working. Everything I was doing, Brittany, was literally sending me into a tailspin. It was like I would meditate and somehow I was in a worse space. I was trying to do cognitive therapy and everything was getting like jumbled in my mind. And I was like, whoa, what is happening right now? Why is nothing working? This just worked. And that is what honestly kind of forced me to drop into the body. And
Yes.
I was grateful that I was sharing my journey very public at that point online, that people were like, hey, why don't you try like breath work? Have you done that before? And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of it. And I tried a couple of times. I'm like, no, it's not for me. And they're like, well, everything you're sharing is kind of saying the opposite. And that was what kind of like, I was in a deep enough surrender and like what the fuck is going on with me? And I was pregnant and I had a toddler and I was living in California at the time. So like my husband was at home because everybody was home and my toddler was with me and I was trying to stay sane pregnant. And I'm like, okay, how am I even going to get through the next day if this is how this is going to be? We don't know. We're at stay-at-home orders, right? Especially in California, it was like fear porn central for anyone that knows. So it was like, we're locked in. What are we going to do? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to surrender. What's the worst thing? Like I breathe and like I have a meltdown. All right. So I got on like an online Zoom one night with this, facilitator, and he's like, I'm going to guide you. It's going to be you, but like, I'm just going to guide you. And I'm like, totally go in, Brittany, like whatever, this is not going to work. Had such a bad attitude, like, and that's not like me, but I was so annoyed that like in the mind I couldn't control what's happening.
Yes.
So my story and like surrender to teach others. And so anyways, as this like happens, I like drop into the body and I seriously didn't know where I went. I mean, I did, but didn't. And it was such a beautiful embodiment and shift and transformation. That night seriously changed my life. It was an hour online and I came to and I was crying and I'd released so much. And I was like, what just happened? I feel like I lost 20 pounds of emotional weight in like, I don't know how long. And he's like, that's what breath work is. And I was like, sign me up. What just happened? It was like, I was sold. And from then on, I started taking sessions with him and some other facilitators. And fast forward, it wasn't until it was time to give birth to Arlie, and it was at 42 weeks, which, technically according to the medical system is
Right.
late, and I was like, I'm not doing interventions. Like, I want to have this VBAC, vaginal birth after a C-section. I had the C-section with Amelia, and I was like, I'm not doing it. I worked too hard on like my mind, my body, my soul. Like, it's not happening. So 42 weeks, finally that night, like I go into labor in the middle of the night. I get in my tub. I start doing breath work. I'm like, okay, everything's going to be fine. I had to go to the hospital, but I was like, I'll stay home for as long as I can, especially because it was COVID times and there were so many rules at the hospital. They almost didn't have Justin there, my husband. I was so grateful that like Spirit switched it literally like the week before I went into labor. And so I got to the hospital after laboring and everything was good. And like, long story short, everything had been like so seamless. It was almost like, I was like, wait a second, how could it be this easy? And then I get to the hospital and then of course it's like, mask, lights, all the things. And I'm like, fight or flight immediately, right? Like body goes from like homeostasis, total relax to like, ooh, fight or flight, what's happening? And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I'm freaking out. And I was grateful that I had breath work because I said to my husband, like, can you get the lights down low and put up my affirmation cards? And I need to start to like ground in my body and start to relax. And that's exactly what I did. And so I was able to get back to homeostasis. Labor started progressing again and everything was good. So here I am thinking like, cool, everything's good. We're going to be good again. At the very end, she got stuck just the same way that Amelia got stuck, which showed me the body always holds, right? Like one of my favorite books ever is The Body Keeps Score. Like our body is always holding until we've released. So my body was holding her and I'm like, oh my gosh, this can't be happening. It's time to push. I finally gotten there to the end and she's stuck. Like, how is this happening? And I looked at my husband and I'm like, okay, I need to listen to my headphones. I love my dog right now. I need to listen to my headphones. I need to listen to one of my fear like releasing playlists and get deeper into the breath work. So that's exactly what I did. And as I dropped in fully in the body, and I was grateful that my doctor walked out, like everyone let me have a minute. I swear, Brittany, and I know you have all and your audience get this. It was such an out of body experience. I swear I had to have been in heaven or another realm. Like I saw pink, I saw purple, like I saw like just beautiful colors. And I was there, but I was not in my body. I was watching myself go through this process. And I had my angels telling me like, it's all fine. Like you just have to trust, like you're there. Do not stop where you are, like follow your path. And I was just like, okay, I have trust. And I just kept deep breathing. And next thing I know, I hear my doctor say, okay, get ready to push. And I just deep breath in and push. And there she was on my chest, 9 pounds, 3 ounces. I was in disbelief. I fell back into my body, like physically felt her back on my chest. My husband's like literally like jaws dropped. Everyone's in disbelief. And I'm like, holy shit, it happened. Oh my God. And that was the moment that I decided to get certified as a breathwork coach, because that embodiment, that dropping into the body, like not only the hero's journey, right? But it was like what you said, like when you're in the body, there's such a shift. Like, and you can't understand it until you actually experience it. Like someone could tell you to their blue in the face, you got to get out of the mind, you got to connect mind, body, soul. Like it's a whole, and you're just like, yeah, okay, until you experience it and you go, oh my God, that's literally the missing piece to every single thing in my life. And that's how I've lived life since. It's like every single time, even though I want to get back in the mind and like get to the fear paradigm and freeze and be like, wait, what am I doing? It's like, no, what does the body say? Drop into the body. Okay, this is where we are, right? And you center and you recognize immediately like your true soul. And so that's what I love helping other people do. And that's why I got certified.
Thank you for sharing that story. I know that I was getting chills as you were talking, so I know that the audience is going to like resonate deeply with this as well. You know, and it's wild because I talk about this a lot, and so you're just confirming so much here. Motherhood is such an awakening and spiritual process.
Yeah.
It is such an awakening in itself. And even if women aren't conscious of what's happening, once you get them in a circle talking about it, they find these resonance points of like, I felt out of body. I felt like I wasn't, you know, and it's like, we just had my community's first retreat last weekend together. That was just my tribe. And I got on this whole channel as I was like, we are portals.
Yes.
We are portals to other realms. We are portals to this planet. And if anyone tries to tell you that you don't hold power and magic, I need you to just look between your legs, because literally
it's so
you're
true.
a portal.
I mean, you're the bridge from heaven to earth. Like there's no question.
There's none. And the reason that I think, have fear around breathwork as a collective is we've never been taught to breathe. We've never been taught. You're never taught. We have to learn how to breathe. And that, in my mind alone, I'm like, what kind of matrix
it's so
are we?
backwards. It's like
It's so backwards.
Classes for mothers, right? It's like they tell you the complete wrong way to breathe. Like they put you in the fight or flight where you're in the sympathetic nervous system. Like you're not actually getting into homeostasis. It's true. Can I tell you, when I started taking classes and certification after certification, I was like, I've been breathing wrong my whole life. What's happening?
Like, it is. You learn your breathing backwards.
Yes, you do.
It's so wild. And, you know, it's whenever I work with anyone, or even like I just did a TikTok video that went viral last night, and like I took them just into 3 breaths, 3, and did some light language. And people are like, oh my gosh, I'm crying. This is happening. I'm tingling. And I'm like, there is medicine in breathing. There's medicine in breath work. And if you allow yourself to go there, I think part of the resistance too, I know for me, I'll just speak personally. I did hypnobirthing when I had my first son. So I actually went straight into like that hypnosis breath work with first baby.
I tried to and failed.
Oh girl, that was the first time that I was like a spiritual baby. It was like I knew Abraham Hicks, I knew The Secret, but like I wasn't embodied in like any of the things that I am now. But that was such a moment that I was like, wow, I'm experiencing this different dimension with this that I've never experienced before. And for me though, when it became like past hypnobirthing, when it was just breath work, I had resistance because I felt when I would deep breathe in the way that they were telling us, my chest got tight, my womb got tight. I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a panic attack. Like I
the same thing. Yes.
Anxiety. And this breathwork practitioner was like, you have to just push through it. Even if you feel like you're going to pass out, you're not going to pass out. And even if you do, you're safe. Like you're okay.
Yeah.
My whole body got cold. I was shaking. I was like, this isn't right. And then you hit that moment that it flips and you're like, oh, wait, like I'm in a whole journey here. Like I'm in
Yeah, you're right.
entirely
It's like,
thing.
it's almost like, you know, and as I was learning the science behind it too, right? It's like, first off, your brain has to compute what you're doing, right? Because we don't, like you said, we don't breathe naturally at all. So our body is like trying to compute to the mind of like what's happening. But then when you actually get past that and the neuroreceptors in the back of your brain actually start to shut off, because that's what happens when you bring more oxygen to the body, that is the pushing past. That is that mark where it's like, ah, it's safe to drop in. Oh, actually, I might actually remember that this is how you came into this world. Like when you look at a baby, right? We're speaking about motherhood, like a baby comes in, we see them breathe deeply into the belly, into the chest, and out. And they breathe that way for quite a few years until the world programs them differently.
Exactly. And it's all you're unwinding programs. And it's like, this is
Exactly.
a whole other layer. And, I want to speak to anyone in the audience that's listening that if you feel the resistance to breathing, to breath work, and it's because you've got past trauma with anxiety attacks or whatever it might be, I'm going to invite you. You're not listening to this by any chance. This is very much spirit driven. I'm going to invite you to lean in and, move past that. And if you need someone you trust to be with you while you're doing this, like find and call to those people. But this is a game changer. And, breathing is literally how we move emotions through the body too. And it's, we don't love going into our emotional body
Oh,
sometimes
no, we do not.
because it's uncomfortable and it's like, I don't want to go there, but you have to eventually go there, because if you actually want transformation, if you actually want embodiment, if you actually want change, there's so many people watching, those of us who are leaders, who are on TikTok and we're on Instagram and we're showing how our life has changed radically. And people are like, what did you do? It's like, there is no secret hack. It's like, we're not
And it's not a
gatekeeping.
one size fits all, right? It's like literally you're trying all these pieces to see like, how can I drop in, and then how can I embody that, like you said. And it's true. And I mean, same with me. I used to be so the spiritual, like I read all the books and I did all the things and I thought I was, totally embodied spiritual, until I wasn't, until, here I am, like in the first birth, and I'm trying to do the same thing, hypnobirthing, and I'm like, why is nothing working? Why am I feeling pain? I'm not supposed to be feeling pain. Like I thought I was thinking this through. And it's like, no, you're not using the mind. You're getting out of the mind and into the body, because the body is the sacred channel. Like you said, it is the medicine. It's the divine channel. I think the more we understand that, especially as mothers, the more we can hold our power. And I think you're right. I think there's also a fear and a resistance to it, because we've been taught for so long that we're not powerful, and that, we're supposed to just have the baby and that's it, right? And we just are a caretaker. And by the way, I know so many moms that just do that, and that's amazing, and that's a full-time job. I mean, I know I have 3 little ones and an entrepreneur, and I know you have, your mother too, but we can be all of it. It doesn't have to be this, or it can be this and right. And it's like understanding that power. And also I'm interested for you, Brittany, like for me, as I dropped more into the body and went through this experience, the more I realized I could be more in flow in motherhood, in entrepreneurship. Like it did not have to be the grind and the fight or flight and the constant like masculine energy of like, I have to be doing this and then I have to be here. It's like, no, I can be in flow. I can be in my inner child, my children. I can then jump on a podcast. Now I can go back to what I'm doing. And like, there's more, and there's more abundance, and there's more expansion. And that was another thing I had to like really unwire and unlearn in my journey of like being the constant push celebrity stylist for 15 plus years of like grind. It doesn't have to be that way. There's actually a better way.
Right. And it's dropping into our feminine, that's what's been awakening, right? That's a part of our awakening, is like remembering our feminine, remembering flow. And, most of the people that I work with, because I've been running courses for years now on divine feminine, and they get in the container and they're like, yeah, I'm in my feminine. And so we start to talk about divine feminine, wounded feminine, like divine masculine, wounded masculine. And they're all like, I'm actually not in my feminine at all. I'm negatively in my feminine.
Right.
And that was such a path for me, that being a single mother of 2, and ironically, the partners that I have had since I've divorced my kid's dad, they've not lived in my state, which
Wow.
has been an interesting, like, I'm dropping a lot in about that whole other side topic. But I have had no partner physically really with me. Like
Yeah.
they'll come visit, but it's never like long, extensive time, right? And I've looked back, and now hindsight in some of this. And I'm like, I have had to learn, because this is what I'm here to help people remember, is even when you are by yourself, a single woman taking care of children, you can still be in flow. You do not have to be in the masculine. And even if there's not a party holding big masculine energy, that's okay. You can still be in flow, because we've been taught, well, you're a single mom, hustle, be the boss bitch, be
Right.
this. And it's like, yes, yes. And you also need to know how to be in your flow. And for
Yeah.
me, like, I actually thrive in flow. Like,
Me
I do
too.
not
Yeah.
thrive in the masculine. I don't. I
I'm
can
with
do
you.
it.
Yep.
I don't thrive in that. And like,
Isn't it funny how we used to like that was the old paradigm, right? Like that was the hardest part for me in the beginning, was letting that go, because I'm like, even though I don't thrive in it, this is my normal. Like I do this and I make it work and it happens and it's fine. And I'm like, but I actually don't like it at all. I need
your
to leave
nervous
it.
system doesn't
Yes.
like it.
Oh, not at all. No, my nervous system is like, what are you doing? Stay in flow, please. This is your homeostasis. Like, this is how you, that's why I say come home to yourself through the breath. It's like, yes, your nervous system wants to be regulated. And I teach this too. I tell women and moms all the time, like, when you're regulated, you're real. You're your authentic self.
Exactly.
Right. It's like we
Exactly.
wonder sometimes why we're so fragmented. I know even for me in my journey, it was like, why am I acting that way? Like I've done all this practice and I'm like, oh, because I'm not embodied in it. I'm not actually in the direct flow. I'm just going in and out. And that was something I had to learn too, was like actually dropping in and staying embodied. And it was actually really funny. You know, I'm sure like you've experienced this in your own family, but like I'm the black sheep of my family. I claim it. I'm happy to be. I'm the awakened one. Everyone else to sleep. It's all good. I used to be like so upset about that. Now I claim it like a badge of honor. I'm like, no, I'm here to make the spark, to ignite it all. So I bring that up because like when my parents have been around me, like they like we're, you know, totally different, obviously wavelengths. And my mom will say to me, you know, how do you stay like in this flow and homeostasis? Like it's not possible. And my dad actually chimed in and looked at her and goes, it is. And she goes, no, it's not. And he goes, it's a state of being for some people. And it's something now that she's practiced. And I was shocked because my dad and I don't see that. I've done a lot of stuff, especially these days. And I love my dad to death, but we just don't, because of, you know, all I went through my awakening. And that's okay. But it was so cool to see him like just say that, especially as a male, to like understand. And my mom was so like triggered and confused that like, well, how could that be? And I'm like, I know, mom, I get it, because I used to be that fragmented, like where I would go in and out. It was like I was doing breath work and all was well, and then immediately back to the chaos and the divine masculine and that not regulated nervous system. And I'm like, but I don't live that way anymore. I'm at a peace in myself. I'm so grateful that I am so embodied that like even in the intensity, I can stay there. I can stay grounded. I can hold the space and hold it for my home. Right. And it was just so cool to see the reflection of like, yes, you can be. Because when he said that, Brittany, it was like another drop in of my own power of like, yeah, embodying this. Like you've been seeing this. Like this is a changed woman. It's a changed daughter, right? Like they saw me growing up my whole life. I was very fearful. I was always anxious. It was always like, and I think because of my gifts, probably I was just like, didn't know how to show up in the world.
Yes.
And I was just always anxious and I was, you know, bullied a lot and all the things. And I just was like, to hear him say that, you know, to be almost 39 years old in July, I was like, oh my gosh, like he's seeing me at like a different
Yes.
level, you know? And it
Yes.
just felt so good to know like I've been that embodied, even though we haven't agreed on anything and you think I'm crazy in so many ways, like you can see the transformation. And so what you were saying, like when people are watching us and watching us online and are like, what did you do? It's like that drop in of the body. It's like, yes, of course I have my practices. Yes, of course I have everything going on, but the embodiment, that actual transformation of staying in the body, that's the shift.
It is. And it's palatable. Like
It
people
is.
will feel it
Yeah.
because we feel. It's like when you start to feel and allow yourself to be in your body, people feel it. And, you know, with my kids, like they do so much better with me when I'm in flow. When I step
Oh,
into
yeah.
my masculine, I see the resistance happen
Oh,
immediately.
me too. Same. Immediate mirror. I'm like, oh, we're not doing that.
Right. And I'm like, all right, soften back into breath. And it's funny because, you know, for me now, I mean, breath is a part of my daily moment. And
Yeah,
so
same.
when I feel over capacity, I will literally, if I'm driving, if I'm in the kitchen, like I will just start
Same here. Yep.
like
Immediately.
big breathing and like looping breath. And the kids know now. They'll come up and they'll be like, are you over capacity? And I'm like, yep. mom's having a lot of energy moving through right now. And it's really beautiful to watch because we are raising this next generation to understand things that we were never shown. We're literally leading them into a different way. And so, allowing the kids to witness us in this embodiment is such a gift that we're giving them just by being. Like, we're not even having to do
I
anything,
love
but
that
just
with them, and that you can tell them like
be.
I'm at capacity with me, like with my two daughters, like we do breath work every day together. And like we drop in and we'll do a little like energetic rewiring, and we'll just like sit and talk and breathe through it. And it's so beautiful to watch them when I'm not doing it with them, that now they go to do it. Like that's their
Exactly.
go-to, like you said, because now they're embodying it, they're seeing it with us. I'm like, how powerful. You're right. It's like we didn't have this, like no one has had this. And it's like we are bringing this brand new wave and generation into this whole new stream of consciousness. It's amazing.
And like, I think about relationships because I think about this often. My oldest is like to the point where he's like, Mom, I really want you to have a partner. I really want you to have someone that helps you. And like, in one hand, that like pinches my heart a little bit because I'm like, I love that you see that I'm doing so much that it would be helpful sometimes
Yeah.
to have somebody. But in the other hand, I'm like, I really love that I'm in my total sovereign space right now, and I'm able to give them the sight of what a single woman can do, not in her masculine, and
Uh,
see the difference. But also, they're going to be able to hold a partner, whether it's a man or a woman, doesn't matter. But like, let's just say, like, the daughters you're raising, the sons I'm raising, can we just for a moment think about what the unions are going to look like when they
no,
are
oh my gosh, I get full
raised,
body chills.
where they are raised to, when things get bubbled up and the emotions are there, that they literally can sit and breathe together and be like, let's just come back to center for a moment. And like, I get emotional thinking about it
Me
because I'm
too.
like,
Let's say like I'm like tearing up. Can I
this is
tell you? Like
why
this is exactly. Yep.
this is why we're doing it. And it's like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, we talk about lineage and generational healing. And I'm like, but y'all, we're so close. Like, this isn't like hundreds of years down the line. Like, the children on the planet, whether you're an aunt or a grandparent or a mother or a father, it's like, this is going to be we're going to see this, right?
Yes.
We're going to see this in our lifetime, this ability to hold emotion and move through energy in a way that we had to learn in our 30s, 40s, 50s,
Really.
60s.
Right.
These babies know how to do it at 9 and 10. And I'm like, imagine where they're going to be at
Yeah.
30.
6 and almost 4. I know. I know. And my son, he's 19 months old. Like obviously he has no idea what he's doing. But yeah, of course he does because he's an old soul. But like he'll watch us and he'll start to be like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, stop. You're already doing this. Like, it's amazing to watch and see. And I'm with you. Like, it gives me full body chills because it's like the other day, Amelia, one of her friends was playing outside and she like was having a hard moment and she like kind of lashed out and flipped out and said something nasty to my daughter. And I was so proud of Amelia. She just looked at her and she goes, it's okay. I can see that you're moving through a lot right now and you're having a hard time. And I know you didn't mean those words and you don't think they hurt, but words actually do hurt. And she said, but I'm going to show you how you can maybe move through that and breathe. And I was like, I literally almost fell over. And so did her mom. And her mom looked at me and goes, oh my God. And I said, that's what I've been doing with them. This is what I'm talking about because I've been teaching my neighbors and trying to tell them. And they look at me like I'm crazy. This is woo woo. And I'm like, it's not woo woo. This is literally, like you said, it's moving energy, it's moving emotion. E for emotions, E for energy. Energy is emotion. Like, and I keep trying to like preach this and explain this, but I love that they saw it because I'm like, I can talk again until I'm blue in the face, right? Just like that person did to me.
Exactly.
Breathwork. And I'm like, yeah, okay, until I experienced it. But them watching with their kid, it was like that mind blowing emoji. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of my daughter to witness this right now. Like I was crying.
I mean, and these are, I think, the golden moments that I don't think we realize we're going to get from doing
Yeah.
this work personally, that then we pass to the kids is, my oldest, they have these they're like little pieces of rectangles that they write something on every semester in school. They have to
Oh,
write something that's kind of their motivator or their words that are going to keep them going when they're having a hard day. And I tell the boys all the time, I'm like, you can do hard things. Like when we hit the playground and it's like monkey bars and they're like, I can't. And I look at them and I'm like, what happens when you say you can't? And they're like, I can't. I'm like, okay, well, what happens if you say you can't? And they're like,
Yeah.
I
I do
will.
the
I'm
same
like,
thing. I love that. Yeah.
great. And I'm like, we can do hard things, right? I'm like, even if it hurts, even if it's hard, you can do hard things. And his paper that he brought home for this Christmas break said, I can do hard things. And I just like, it's on the fridge because I'm like, boys are, they're, I don't know about girls, but two boys, I am like a referee 150%
Oh,
of the
I feel
time.
that way with Abel, and he's only 19 months old. I was just saying to my husband last night, I'm like, what did he climb on? How did he get this cut? Like, it's so different because I have my two little princesses, and now I'm learning how to have a boy. I get why he's my third. It's like spirit knew.
Yeah, I went straight into the gauntlet. They were
You
like,
went
it's
straight in.
time. It's time. But it is wild. And I'm watching them and I can see too that the boys are taking a little bit longer to fully embody it, right? But they're doing it. It's like my kids will sit in the back of the car and I'll see my littlest, who's 5, doing the breathing that I do. And I just kind of let him be there. And I'm like, if you want to talk about anything, we can talk. My oldest will grab like our hand pan or the sound bowl and like go into his room and just
Love
play
it.
music. And I'm like, find what works for you. But giving these tools to these kids, it's such a ripple effect, like exactly what you're talking about. And people can say we're woo woo all day, but I'm like, you know what? Our kids are going to be the ones that are going to help the kids who have the homes that are struggling. And
Mhm.
when my kids come back and they're like, I'm getting made fun of for this or this, I'm like, what do I tell you all the time when someone is mean to you and when someone is bullying? And they're like, that's not me, it's them. And I was like, right, it's a projection of whatever is happening for them
Mhm.
and they feel like they're hurting, so they want to hurt. And I was like,
Hurt
you
people,
have to,
hurt people. Uh-huh. Yep.
I'm like, you have to stop that. And I know it's not fun. And I know it's easier to just be mean back,
Yep.
but that's just, it continues and it just continues and continues. And so it's like, we are doing literal like God's work here with
Yeah.
these kids because in 10 years from now, we're going to have an entirely different relating system.
I agree 100%. And, I think when you speak about too with the hurting and the healing, like I realized also in my embodiment journey, like a huge piece of, my journey was like forgiving my parents for not seeing me like,
Oh,
who I am. Like that was a huge piece. And I feel like that's important to share because I think there's so many, especially in your audience, who like can relate to that. Like they've just never felt seen and you've held that hurt and you've held that anger and that anxiety and all that drama, but then you just continue to hurt other people around you because again it's the projection, right? And I know I did, and I recognized even in my own marriage that like I wasn't showing up the way I needed to for my husband. He's been nothing but beyond supportive to me the day he met me, and I loved him, but I wasn't like showing up embodied for him because I was so hurt by so many things I had been through. And then my grandmother passed away right after we got married, and so it was just like I just let it all out on him instead of like actually processing. And so a huge piece that I've realized too with like regulating my nervous system and doing the breath work is like I've completely showed up as a whole new wife. Like, and it's changed our relationship dramatically. And I'm so grateful that he's like watched me go through this like cracking open and his awakening with my own awakening and like how we've continued to grow and heal. And now he's more regulated because I'm regulated. Like it's such a shift. Like, it really is. It's that magnetism. It's like you transfer it because everything's energy, right? So you literally are transferring that energy resonance to that next person around you, just like you said to our children. So yeah, it's just like we can say it's woo woo all day until you recognize it's changing everything around you. It's like we want people to change. I know that was me, guilty. I wanted everyone to change around me. Like, why do you
yeah.
act like that? Why do you this? But as soon as I started doing the work, I started dropping in, everyone around me changed or they fell off. They were no longer in
I
my life.
orbited out. Yep. That's what I'm like. Once you come into alignment, it's like we call it the alignment trigger in my orbit. Cause I'm like, once you step into alignment, people will step out.
They
They
do.
will
Oh
step
my gosh,
out if
almost
they
all
didn't
of my
choose
old
that.
friends like gone. I mean, and at first, I'll be honest, that was really hard. Those are the people that I've had in my life since I was super young, and they were like at my wedding, and all the things, right? And it was like, oh my gosh, like what is wrong with me? Like, why are all these people gone? But I had to have that realization of like, oh, they served again like a season, right? They were around for a season for a reason, but where I'm going, what I'm doing, they can't hold that capacity. They're not healed. They're not in that space. And that's okay. I can love them still, anyways, but I have to keep going forward, even without those relationships.
It's such a big piece. And there's so much compassion. And I'm sure you hold this too for the people who are in that space right now. Cause there's a
Yeah.
lot of the collective that's waking up and a lot of them are very rapidly losing all the people. And they're like, well, yeah, this is cool that like maybe I do breath work or I meditate, but like I have no one around me anymore. And I'm like, the ability to become safe in your sovereignty and in yourself is again something that many of us aren't comfortable with. It's uncomfortable. I mean, I would have
Very uncomfortable.
panic attacks sometimes when I would be by myself for too long because I'm like, I don't know how to be by myself. Like I need something. I need something to do.
Oh, I used to like turn the music on like crazy and like be like get a book because I was like, I can't sit with my thoughts. I can't sit here by myself. That was like one of the hardest things when I was first going through my postpartum depression, and my therapist was like, you just need to sit with your thoughts. And I was like, what, are you nuts?
You're like, bad idea.
That's not happening. And then I tell you what, just to like make, your community understand that like I'm a totally different woman than I was 6, 7, 8, 9, all the years ago. Like I wrote in my journal every day, Brittany, how much I hated meditating. I'm like, I hate meditation. It does not work. I hate writing gratitude lists. They do not work. Like I have journals that say that. Like, and I have to look at them and laugh because I'm like, wow, talk about embodiment, like how far I've come. But I was so in the mind. I was so fearful. I was so resistant to so much until, like you said, I pushed through that resistance and aha, there came the breakthrough. Right. And so, like anyone listening or watching, it's like if you're feeling like that resistance, like your breakthrough is on the other side. You have to let yourself go through it, and you do it in a safe space, but like you got to go through it. The only way in is through. Like there is no going around. There is no like, nope, it's through.
Straight through. Like there is no dodging. And it's,
No.
I heard I think it was a TikTok yesterday, and it was a quote that was over like a video, and it said, the best way to slay the demons in your life is to stop running and to turn around and face them. And I'm like,
Whew.
whoo, that one hits like, wow, because it's so true. It's like, it was really cute that I didn't realize what I was doing when I did this, but 2 years ago, I said, Spirit, anything that's not authentic, take it out. I
Oh
don't
my
want
God, I did the same thing. I literally was like, God, anything that's not working, remove it.
y'all, alignment trigger warning times 10. If you say it, be careful. Our words are spells. Our
Yeah.
words have energy. Within 2 weeks, I left the people that I was working for 4 years. I let go of this relationship that was super healing with an incredible man that I just knew, though, was not my partner, and went into this depth of grief that I was like, what did I just do? And I was literally laying in bed, sobbing, like sick, like my cells were purging.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my bread and butter of my job is gone. The person that was holding me through my stuff is gone. What is happening? Like, what am I doing right now? And Spirit just kept being like, you're making space. You need to trust me. You're making space. You asked for this. What's coming? You're not going to believe it. What's coming? You need to have space. So I was in this, like, what felt like Jekyll and Hyde energy of like, I'm in total breakdown and I'm in total victim mode, but then quickly flipping into like, no, I hear you. I know stuff's coming. I know I'm clearing it out for something that's better. And when I tell you what came in was, and now hindsight again, was a year of a glimmer of the things that are coming in a new level.
Right.
At that point, it was everything that I had on my vision board to manifest all at once fucking dropped in.
Amazing.
All at once. And I was like, is this real life right now? Like, is this where we are?
But you had to shed it all to make room for all that. But I feel that so deeply. And I feel like that's another piece that doesn't get talked about in the spiritual community of like, when you go through this awakening, that like, especially when you ask for that like type of support, it all falls away and you're sitting there in deep grief. Like that was me too. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Why is literally nothing working? Nothing's resonating. No one's around me. Like, what is happening? And same, I was just like bawling my eyes out for months. Like I feel like I'm going crazy. Maybe I'm dying. I don't know what's happening, right? Like,
but a part of you is dying.
and that's what I was gonna say. You recognize, like when you have that reflection afterwards, you're like, oh, I was dying. The old Allie was dying away. This new version of me, the highest version of me, is emerging, right? And that's the evolution. But again, I feel like this piece is not talked about as much in the spiritual community. It's like everyone talks about the awakening and being awake and what that looks like, and then they talk about the end result, but there's no like in between. And by the way, like, you're probably going to have 100 deaths before you get to, and then some, right? Like, as we continue to evolve, I'm sure same for you. Like, I know for me, as that happened, even this year, I went through another wave of a death, and I was like, what's going on? I thought I already went through this, you know?
You seem like waters I have already navigated.
Yes. Which I was grateful that I was regulated to navigate them, but I was just like, really? This was happening? And literally, my spirit was like, yeah, next level, you asked for the next level. So make room again. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
And I agree. I think that there is so much to be said about having this part of the awakening more talked about, because what I stepped into well, 2 Novembers ago, not this November, the previous, was a partnership that I had been calling in. I was like, I want an aligned partner. I want a partner who's driven, who's in their mission. And I really want to step into this level of wealth that I have been working my butt off for.
Yeah.
When I tell you that, like, overnight, this activation happened with someone who already was in my orbit that I had little glimmers of, but never really the full picture.
Oh, yeah.
It was 0 to 150, like 0 to 60. We were 0 to 150. And it took me into a next level of obtaining experiences and codes that I had to have for where I am right now, while also bringing me face to face with a program that has been so deeply running in my lineage that I was like, oh, I'm not a part of that. That's not in me anymore. I've healed past that. That last summer, it was in my face. Like, you want to talk about demon in your face. I was driving, my partner at the time, very wealthy, private jets, black card, anything I wanted. It was all the things. And at the same time, this manipulation of the beginning was very shiny, everything is great, to, well, in my world, we have to dress like this. In my world, you have to present in social media like this. And it was this overlay of security and stability with the underlay of control and manipulation, which, when I tell you where I've come from, like, I grew up in money. I grew up in wealth. My whole family, I've always had mansions, nice cars, staying at 4 or 5 star hotels. That's not new to me.
Got it.
However, all of the partners up to this most recent partner that I've attracted I've been the breadwinner. I've been the one that's made the most money for the most part. I've been the one that's been working to clear things. They never held this code, right? And so when I let this partner prior go, I was like, I'm ready for that stability in a partner. I'm ready to not be the one who's leading everything. Like, I'm ready for that. And when I tell you the pendulum swung hard to the other side, by summer, I was driving in the Land Rover and just looking out the windshield, and I had this moment that I saw my grandmother.
Oh.
And I saw, like, I was my grandmother, and I felt this energy, and spirit was like, are you paying attention? You are running a program that has been running through your lineage. And if you continue to do this, you're not in your mission right now. You're not where you need to be. And I'm like, what is happening? I feel totally disconnected from my body. The partner at the time was like, let's rebrand the business. Let's do this, which is all things I wanted. And I'm very grateful because it happened for a reason. However, I stepped off social media in February and I did not come back until August.
Wow.
You're a social media person.
Yeah.
I was 6 feet under in social media. There was no.
I get that, by the way. Like, so my therapist made me do that. It's crazy you say that. My therapist made me do that back in 2018 when I was going through the postpartum depression and anxiety, because she's like, you need to choose either your health or your wealth. Like, what's it going to be? Because you're choosing job over your health right now. And every time you show up online, it's literally destroying you, because you can't show up as your authentic self because you can't accept who you are right now. And I was like, oh, I'll just keep faking it and putting filters. And she's like, yeah, and how long is that going to last? Like, are you kidding? And I had to get off. I got off for 6 months because I was losing my ever loving mind. So I respect you for that. And I get that. And it was so Oh, talk about another death. It felt so weird to like get offline, to like disconnect, to detach, like all of it.
Well, and it's wild because like in my space, like I was feeling like I was actually finally before this union, I was like really locking into a level of authenticity that felt like so freeing, so real, so big. So for it to get kind of like this other party's like things have to be private because of the money, they have to be this. So it really wasn't necessarily me just opting out. It was
Right.
like, this is a request if we're together that like this
This is what
shifts.
you're gonna do. Yeah.
And because I'm such a lover and I'm so much about like whatever, I'm like, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Everything's going to be fine. But I actually felt disconnected from myself, but also I'm like, I'm not serving. And
Right.
that is like, for me, that is what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
And so I walked away from this union in August. And Allie, when I tell you, like, and I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, I I met a depth of myself and grief that I've literally never met. I've never met
Um,
her. I was completely like laying on the floor multiple days in a row, just empty and sobbing. And I'm like, what just happened? Like, I let all of this go. I made all of this space. Then all of this, what felt like fairy tale manifestation dropped in. And now I'm here. And I feel like I just got dropped off a skyscraper. And he's just like, bye. And I'm like, what's happening? What's
yeah.
happening? And I'm speaking to this too because someone listening must need to hear this. When you're in the awakening and you have manifestations drop in, whether it is partners or job opportunities or growth, and then you feel like you got dropped from a skyscraper and you're like, this is not how that was supposed to, quote unquote,
Right.
go.
Supposed to go.
I want to remind you that I'm now on the other side of this and I see so clearly all of the reasons why all of this had to happen because I had a program running within me of leaving myself for another person,
Ah,
leaving myself for quote unquote stability of the lifestyle, only to feel like I'm a Barbie doll that you're dressing up that like is just having to like do whatever
literally
you need them to
trophy.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were on a phone call in August, like right before I was supposed to come back. I had left our place in Florida, was supposed to return 48 hours later. We're on a call, and there is this moment that spirit was like, here's your pivot point. You choose mission or you choose this. What are you choosing?
Um,
So when you were saying, like, I had the choice of health or
mhm.
wealth, I'm like, it was for me. You choose, yeah, mission, or you choose this lifestyle of what your whole family's been running. The
Right.
women are dressed as they're supposed to, quote, be dressed. They are upholding the appearance. They are upholding the money code. They are living the life with whatever they want financially.
They're
However,
showing up the way they're supposed to show up. Right.
they're empty. They
Hmm.
do not do self-care. They serve the man. They are not there. And I'm watching my mother and my grandmother as I'm doing my work. They are showing up in their unions differently. They are speaking up. They are taking their power back. They are like, this is not okay anymore. And I'm like, wow, y'all, nothing ever happens by chance. Nothing ever
Um,
happens by any of it. And I think people like to say, oh, you were attacked. You got sideswiped.
right
You were
side swipe. Yeah.
spiritually attacked. And if that's your belief, then that can be your belief, but that's also victim mentality. And I'm like, I know that I called in this partner to help me run this program so deeply that I will never fucking touch that program again.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. I will never step away from my mission again. Absolutely not. I will never let someone share with me that to be in their world, I have to show up differently because
Yeah.
that's not union.
Ooh, so true. It's so powerful.
And I'm like, in all of this generational healing, all of it, it's all linked.
It,
Everything is
yeah.
linked. And since I've stepped away from that and I've gotten more clear on even deeper authenticity than I was 2 years ago when I thought I was like, oh, I figured it out. I'm like, here. I'm like, that's cute. Spirit was like, let's get clear of
Let's
what's
get
actually.
deeper. Yeah, same. I know. Well, it's funny, like when you say even like the choice, it was like, so I took the step back and then I got back online and I, 6 months later, and I posted a super raw photo of me. Now, the photo before that, if you'd like looked at my feedback, then it was all celebrities. I would talk about like super proper. I was Botoxed out, filler, every leger dress, red bottom heels, you name it. Totally different person you see today. And that was like the filtered look every time on my photos, either me and the celebrity or me like trying to look, super hot and like not in my authentic self, pleasing whoever I needed to please, whatever it was. And then time I came back, I posted a raw photo of me. I was nursing Amelia. I was like crying. It was like makeup on my face. Like it was a hot mess. And first off, I lost like 10,000 followers in a day, by the way. That was like,
Oh,
literally, I got a phone call from my agent, my manager at the time, who was like, your account is bleeding. That's what he said to me. Your account is bleeding. What did you do? And fix it. And I was like, whoa. I posted a photo. I wrote a really raw post about how I'm feeling, what I've gone through with my journey. I felt called to that. Like my spirit told me, like something, and he's like, I don't give a shit what said what. Delete it, archive it, like
oh,
yeah, it was like, and I honestly, I was sitting there and I had brand deals like lined up, like, because I was doing a ton of work on social media at that time, and I was like, I can't. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, we have campaigns, like you can't be bleeding out in your account. And I was like, I can't. And that was like the next level, like what you're speaking to, of like that next
yes.
level of depth of like I was bawling my eyes out, leaving it up, knowing I was going to fire my agent. I was going to walk away from that next level of like that level of what I was doing and building, to be like, here we go again with the like deeper into embodiment of the authentic self. And I did. And it was so hard because once again, everything fell away. A bunch of my campaigns dropped off. Like my agent was gone. Like all these people that I had, gotten into this new space with after leaving the styling space. It was like, oh, good,
Yes.
here's social media. Now I have this. And it was all ripped away. But then on the flip side, like you're saying with the reflection, all of a sudden, months later, I got a phone call from People Magazine and Self Magazine, and they wanted to interview me on this raw photo I had shared. And can you talk about your journey and help other mom? And I was like, what? Who is it? Like, it was like, what's happening? And I had these like crazy, in-depth articles and interviews. And from that came brands that wanted to align with me
Yes.
in that space on a so much more expansive space. And my tribe started coming around me, moms and women, and who I wanted to be speaking to in the first place were like, oh my gosh, you're speaking to my heart. Like, I want to connect with you. Like, I want to hear what you've done to work on yourself. This was pre-breath work. You know what I mean? And so it was like, here began that journey of like showing up authentically. And that's what I've learned too, is like, the more we go through this, there's so many more layers of the authenticity. But I have also witnessed for myself, and it sounds like same for you, as we do, there's another huge layer of the death and the grief that has to happen. It's like, you don't get to just go to the next level. It's like, no, we have to shed again and then come out of the chrysalis and come back out. And it's like, I feel like I went through that last year. Like I went into another full-blown cocoon because I'm like, okay, why, like online stuff is great, but like I'm feeling there's something missing piece here, and like I'm not showing up fully in service like I'm supposed to be. And now I know I'm supposed to be doing more like in-person events and retreats and all these big things, but that scared me. So I like hid from that. And it was like, I'm just going to keep doing the online thing. And spirit was like, nope, it's not going to work. It's not going to be what you think it's going to be. And sure enough, it was like, why are things not filling up the way they used to? And why are things not? And it was like, oh, time to pivot, time to lean in, like time to get more authentic. But I had to be more seen. Right. And it was like, do I want to be more seen? And so I feel like that's another piece, this awakening is like what you're sharing. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so many levels, but at the end of the day, all comes back to coming home to ourselves. It all comes back to that authenticity of us is the highest self of you. And until you really drop into that, especially if you're here for that in service and this mission, you're going to keep feeling stuck because you're resisting the true authenticity of you. And I feel for you because I had so many programs running and I'm still working through other programs. And it's like, wow, so much compassion for the collective, but also for ourselves as we go through this journey. Like it's hard.
And tribe is so important. It's so important. And I think for anybody listening that's like, wow, I don't want to go through this like multiple death cycle. I want to speak to every time, at least for me, feels still like death, but also softer in some ways and easier to navigate because my toolbox has grown and my awareness and my belief systems are different than they were in the last one. And so, even in me getting knocked off this skyscraper feeling, I also knew if this came in last time, I had to go through this, and this death feels worse than that one. I know that what's coming is going to be even bigger. And I thought this was like the creme de la creme. So whatever's coming is like totally going to be amazing. And I let myself be messy. I let myself go right through it. And Spirit asked me to like share online. And I'm like, I haven't been online for 8 months. And now you're wanting me to get on here crying like a freaking mess. But I know to listen. I'm like, whatever. And it was the vulnerability. It's like when you share these videos or photos of you in these vulnerable spaces, people feel you and they're like, I'm not alone. And it's so important to have those moments and those people in that tribe, whether it is through retreats or communities, because our tribe are the reflectors of love that get to bring us back home when we can't find our way back home. Because we're like, I'm face down on the sidewalk over here and I don't even know where home is right now because.
Right. I just had the metaphorical 2x4 hit to the head and I'm down on the ground. Exactly. And I love that you said that too. It's true. It does soften. It does not necessarily get easier, but it feels like you already know what you're going through because you've been in it before. So you can navigate. And I think I've learned to like to surrender to it. I used to be so deep in resistance with everything and fight everything. And now I'm like, I'm just going to surrender to it. I'm just going to trust. And I think you're right. It's like when you build your toolbox and you start to have more of that awareness and you're more embodied and in your body, you can recognize like, this is another purge. I don't like it, but I'm going to trust and go through it because I know there's so much more expansion on the other side. I know I can lean in, even if I have no clue what the heck God is doing with me. I know there's so much more coming versus being fearful of not understanding what is happening. And I think the more we lean in and allow the surrender and less resistance, also like, even though maybe time-wise it doesn't actually go faster, it does feel like it happens faster because you've leaned in and you've allowed the process to go through, right? Like think about, like I always tell my clients, like it sounds so simple, but it's like caterpillar, right? They like go through their whole season, they get into the chrysalis and they get in. They don't like wait to like make their chrysalis. Like they know what to do. It's like, okay, it's time for me to go through the next season into my chrysalis. I'm going to crisp up into dust, but I'm going to trust that at the dust, I'm going to be reborn. I'm going to reemerge into this beautiful butterfly. It's kind of like what we go through like over and over again. And when we get to that dust, it's like, oh, we're going to trust, we're going to full surrender in. I don't know what's going to happen, but like something more expansive is on the other side.
And I think when you start to allow yourself to surrender, that's when it does. It's surrender. I mean, that's a whole other episode, but.
Oh, I know. It's been, can I tell you, that's a huge piece of what I've been teaching, like everyone around me. And I laugh because I'm like, of course it is. Because I've had to surrender over and over again in my life, in my careers and my births, like in everything. And I'm like, this is why. Because it's like when we're going through this awakening, like you said, when you start to realize your mission, you're like, oh, there's a reason this keeps reprogramming, keep coming back up. So it's like, I have to break it for me and of course for my lineage, but also for the collective. I have to show them the way and I have to be embodied in it. Right. And so it's like, that's a huge piece of my heart is like, let me show you what surrender looks like. Cause it's not what we talk about.
Not at all. We will definitely, I feel like I say this with 90% of the people that I bring onto the podcast. I'm like, we're going to have to schedule in round 2 for everybody because
I love it.
We then get in a whole other topic and I'm like, this should be its own episode. So those part 2s are starting to schedule in and come in. So we will have to reconvene with this. But as we're closing up, which I don't even know how we've flown through an hour, I would love for you to share, how do people find you? How do they work with you? Are there any things coming, any events or anything kind of coming up now that you want to pitch to everybody?
Yeah, thank you. Well, this was amazing. I knew the minute we met and connected on the phone, it was like Spirit was just immediately talking to us. And I felt the energy. And you're coming on my podcast, Awakening with Allie, next month, which I'm super excited about. So I have my own podcast, Awakening with Allie. It's free. You can listen where you listen to this podcast, and I share my own awakening journey and have amazing leaders on to share theirs. You can work with me one-on-one. I have also a breathwork challenge that I recently just dropped. It's a live 22-day challenge. So you're breathing with me every day. We're dropping in and rewiring and recoding. And it's a great way, from what we spoke to, of like getting into the body and watching it compound in transformation versus just kind of a one-off breathwork session. I have my first retreat planned, which I'm like so nervous and excited to share, in Boone, North Carolina on July 12th, my birthday actually. So come celebrate my birthday weekend with me. I felt like that was like so spirit telling me like, yep, this is like your next reinitiation. So you can check out the details in my profile for that, or message me and ask me about it. I also have full moon circles I do every month with breath work and working together. And just come follow me at Ali Levine Design, connect with me, say hello. My website's alilevine.com. I have my own app called Breathe and Be, where you get to unplug from the matrix and come back home to yourself and your soul and breathe with me. So there's lots of ways to work with me and connect, but I love to connect with community. So if you're feeling this is called to your heart, as you're feeling like this is like really your energy resonance, reach out to me, let me know, and I will talk to you and we can talk about helping you and how I can support you.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your work and your mission. I am always in so much gratitude when I meet soul sisters that I'm like, this is why we came here. This.
This is why we came here.
Oh.
And I know there's much more to come between the two of us. So I look forward to seeing as spirit takes us away.
Yes. So Ali, thank you so much. For those of you who want more information, we are going to have all of her links, ways to connect with her down in the description. So please connect with this beautiful soul. And I will see you guys next week on the Brittany Renée Experience. If you are not already subscribed, please subscribe in. I love you guys so much. Bye.